Good evening. It's a St. Patrick's Day special, and I'm joined by Mr. Neal Clague, well-known man about town in Douglas, but he's also had a keen eye on events today at Cheltenham. So, good evening, Neal.
Yes, happy Paddy's Day to everyone. Slante, I believe, is the cheers, yeah.
Join us with a drink. I've got a wee glass here. It's not the usual refreshment I have when we're doing a Skeetnet, but this is it's a drap of Pinot Grigio. How about that?
Pinot Grigio. You've obviously seen the film Sideways. That's, if you haven't, you need to watch it. Yeah, listen, thanks for inviting me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, tell me, I kind of like Cheltenham. It doesn't really grab me, but you obviously you're a big fan, and was it a complete focus today? Were you right on it? Was it a good day for you?
Yeah, listen, financially it was absolutely fantastic, but I love the Cheltenham Festival because basically Cheltenham turns into Ireland. You know, it just obviously it hasn't this week. It did last year, and obviously that was quite contentious because they invited 250,000 people as the whole thing was kicking off. But yeah, Cheltenham's a really Irish-based thing, and you know it's Paddy's Day, and it's always fantastic viewing, and the horse racing is absolutely fantastic. And so yeah, I don't bet too much. I can't really afford to, but Cheltenham and the national meeting, I always like to have a little bet. But yeah, today's been fantastic. I sort of cleaned up.
Right. You know? Okay. We don't want to give away your secrets, of course, but. I mean, I'm a total novice, and I did have a bet. I've placed a bet on a horse, that's running tomorrow, and I thought I'd look for things that had a bit of commonality with myself. And there is a race that's like the Paddy Power Plate.
Okay.
The Paddy Power Plate. So I'll just pull it up on screen, my little bet. So if I put it on. Right, so I found it, and it was Mr. Whittaker, and it's 14-1.
Okay.
And the silks are nice, and I thought there's a local connection because we've got a Mr. Whittaker on the Isle of Man.
Peel.
That's right, and I thought he's worth a few bob. So money attracts money. What are the chances? Is that featured on your radar?
Well, first of all, I have a slight confession. I have some quite good connections in the betting industry, so most of what I did today was stuff that was passed to me. So I'm not going to pretend that I was absolutely on a roll. I did do some stuff afterwards at Kempton and did really well as well. So, I just had a lucky day, but mine was a bit more. There's no such thing as inside info, but there's slightly more knowledgeable info. So yeah, I'm not going to make any comment on your horse tomorrow, but I'm still going to do it because if I don't do it and it wins, I'll feel extremely aggrieved.
Right. But if I'm just sat as a punter in front of the TV, and I might do that tomorrow afternoon, do you actually listen to what they're talking about, the experts, or are you looking at the horse in the paddock? Are you looking at the shape? Are you looking at the ground? Is it soft? Is it hard? I don't know.
Look, I mean, the guys that win the proper money know what they're doing, but no, my knowledge is like minimal. I can see some stuff that's definitely not going to win, but no, I don't have any sort of proper knowledge. But I can follow the race pretty well. When there's sort of 3 or 4 fences out, I can see if my horse is still in the running. So you can think, oh, come on, son. But there's just something special. There really is, like, definitely.
Well, St. Patrick's Day is very special in the horse racing world, but it's also special down on Douglas South Quay. We've had Michael Josen just pop up and say our St. Patrick's Day logo is awesome, and so are you, Michael. Do you know Michael? Is he?
I do know Michael very well. I've actually sat and had quite a few chats with Michael. I think he's a really fantastic guy. I think he brings a really refreshing attitude to Manx politics. I think the only reason he missed out in the by-election is because he's not Manx. If he was Manx with his viewpoints, I absolutely have no doubt he would have won one of the 2 seats in the by-election. No doubt at all.
Well,
no doubt at all.
He just missed out by, I think it'd be an ear if it was a dead heat in a horse race, because it was only 6 votes or so. So there's a public.
I think it might be more like, it wouldn't even be a short nose, it'd be a tongue. It would be a tongue, seriously.
tongue.
I'm not sure that's the right analogy that you want to hear.
But I do like Michael's approach. I love his pragmatic attitude, his thoughtful, great communication skills, and the campaign was the most exciting of all for the Douglas South that we had.
I agree.
And it was only what, 6 months ago, wasn't it? So, and
It was.
I mean, I don't know on your day-to-day stuff. Do you get time to tune in to the local scene, the politics? Because it's been hyper active. Certainly, all the news from the Tynwald Chamber.
Bizarrely, I actually did have a moment where I considered the Douglas South by-election. I'm from Annika, you know, and I know a lot of people. I may be slightly outspoken, but people know I'm reasonably intelligent and again, slightly pragmatic. But it all just felt a bit too early for me. And I was quite lucky. I met up with David Cretney, who's an absolutely fantastic chap, and he gave me an hour of his time, and he taught me through the bits and pieces you would probably need to know to have a chance. You know, listen to loads of Tynwald, digress backwards with Hansard. I even met Julie Edge again. She'd give me some time, but I just felt it was too early for me. And I was also told that sometimes to have that little 6-7 months first spell doesn't always stand you so well when it comes to the next general election. So it was a fleeting concept, and you know, a few people, quite a lot of people said you need to go for it, but I just didn't feel ready, you know. So I have been keeping up, and I've kept up ever since. I made sure that on Twitter, which I'm quite an exponent of, and I really love. I think it's a great medium. I follow literally every MHK, so I read. I've got a much better idea where people are at. So yeah, you know, I did. But I was rooting for Michael. To be fair, I really was rooting for him, and to come so close and lose by a tongue I thought was really, really quite harsh.
Maybe it was a godsend in a way if he chooses to step up again, and like you said, it's maybe better, you know, pitching in for that 5-year campaign. But in fairness, certainly Claire Christian, I think she took the majority of the votes, didn't she? She has been quite vocal, and there does seem to be an opposition bloc forming in Tynwald at the moment, and it was certainly evident today and yesterday, just in the narrative, in that we've got the likes of Hooper, Edge, Daphne Kane. In the MLC camp, we've got Kate Lord Brennan, Claire Barber, who's I think Douglas North, or I don't know exactly where, but they're all kind of gluing together with a common voice, and you think, gosh, if they actually got maybe organised, maybe they are, Chris Robertshaw as well, they could have a real challenge, because there's no question about it. The Isle of Man is in a situation now that I think, and a lot of people do around this fair isle, that could have been avoided. Is that a fair comment?
There's absolutely no doubt about that. But if I was going to be hyper cynical, and I'm not going to relate to any particular potential standees for September or October, because of the talk of it moving back a bit. Because when it did happen, the by-election, I was a little bit personal about some things. And I regret that, because you should never bring personality into what's essentially a bigger picture. But if I was to be hypercritical, all of a sudden, you know, and let's use Cheltenham as an analogy, right? They've done 2 circuits, and there's 4 fences to go. The jockey's not got the whip out, and all of a sudden, all these backbenchers realising that there's blood to be had. I mean, there's no coincidence it was the Ides of March the other day. You know, A2 Brute. They can smell blood, and they can smell the fact that them getting the whip out with the last, you know, three fences and 2 furlongs to go, that it might be great for their next term potential. Again, that could just be me being hyper cynical, but I suspect it's not.
I'd say though that the Isle of Man public are feeling robbed, aren't they? Because we locked down a week too late. That was a year ago. There's no question about that. We shouldn't have followed the party line that was from Boris and the Conservatives. Let it run. Let's have Cheltenham. Let's have Atletico Madrid and all that. And, And really, they never looked back from that disaster. But we were about a week too late, and that led to having a long time where it was 2 months, I think, or so before we started to get some normality. Then we had like the Summer of Love, which was fantastic. I think it was great to see the local bars and restaurants. They did well, didn't they? The nightlife was buzzing, wasn't it, in Douglas? I mean, you're a kind of man about town.
I can't really, I can be very critical now, and I will be, and I have been. But last year, I have to say, they made a few mistakes, but last year, the word unprecedented just gets lobbed out way too much. But last year, it was unprecedented. So, I think they can be forgiven last year for making mistakes. But I'm quite vociferous now in being critical about the current regime. And the problem is when you're critical, you get lobbed at you. Well, if you think you can do any better, well, you should be standing. Well, what about if I don't want to stand or I've got other aspirations? It's a bit like I support Everton, if the manager's not doing great, I can't criticise him because I'm not applying for the Everton manager's job. I mean, it's fucking bollocks. Forgive my French. So if we look at the first lockdown, they made a lot of mistakes early on, but then they got it right. Then we had a great spell where we enjoyed the summer, we enjoyed normality. There was us in New Zealand, in the whole world really, that had some normality. Then almost inevitably we had that little mini spike which created the second lockdown. I couldn't be critical then because again it was unprecedented because we'd come out of a lockdown, so they had to try and lock things up. But this third lockdown and the numbers involved and the hospital admissions and the outright bullshit that they're coming out with, it's just no excuse at all. So, I've gone from, green to amber to just red. If you want to call the lockdowns, again, a traffic light analogy, that's how I paraphrase it.
Well, red light spells danger. And I think from lockdown 2, we had the run up to lockdown 2, didn't we? And that wasn't too long ago. Now, on the run up, everyone could sense what was going to happen.
Yeah.
It's that feeling, it's almost like there's a buzz around the place.
Yeah,
and then a couple of weeks ago, it happened again, didn't it? Where you thought, oh hang on, it's in the community, it's on the radar. Yeah. And then we had that unbelievably, this weekend, and it's actually in folklore now, isn't it? It's called Flip Flop Saturday, where, stay at home. We think you should.
Don't stay at home.
Not everyone did. Not everyone played the game. A lot of local business lost a lot of money on that, which was a payday weekend. They sacrificed a hell of a lot, and others continued to do whatever they did. And I think there's a lot of eyes on something in Laxey that happened, and there was a lot of transmissions there. And we're just looking over our shoulder at the school closure malarkey. Are they open? Are they not? And
perfectly safe to go to school on the Monday. I mean, or to bother with that. It wasn't perfectly safe. It was ridiculous.
But remember on the Friday, you would have been like me and talking with people that you hang around with and communicate with. You would have been saying that we're just going to have to shut the door for a bit.
Do another mini circuit break like we did, yeah.
Yeah. But for some reason, that weekend, they didn't. And it's kind of... that it's cataclysmic. Whatever way they look at it, they cannot deny that faffing around has led to this lockdown, which could be into what... Well, you're a betting man. When are we going to come out?
I have to ask the experts, I know. But to get back to your actual point, if you look at the second lockdown, we all got a vibe on the Friday, and by the Saturday, whatever, it was 24 hours we got a vibe and we were locked down. Now, you say flip-flop Saturday, but the vibe was there from what I can make out, because there's enough to be read in Hansard and Tynwald and stuff. I think midweek they knew it was in the community. So Friday they thought, well, we've got to do something. Saturday they put the message around, you probably should close. Do you have to close? No, but you probably should. But it still took till Tuesday midnight. So you can almost argue that, let's say midweek they had some inkling, because I suspect they did. Can't prove it. How could I? But you can say Friday they knew, Friday to Tuesday midnight. And then to say to the schools, perfectly safe, and no excuses. Howard said it, Ashford said it, and Henrietta said it. They all said perfectly safe to go to school on Monday. And then all of a sudden, Tuesday night, lockdown, and the proliferation now. I mean, to have more in 2 weeks than we had all last year. Well, I mean, what's the justification? How can you justify it like? And don't that you can't use the word unprecedented, because that's sort of bollocks, which I'd like to think I'm clear about.
Well, the business I'm in, is a lot of it's to do with the nighttime trade. And the week before, I had a cracking evening business-wise booked for the Saturday. And even on the few days before, I was speaking with one of my clients, and they were saying about cancelling. Okay, in fact, there were jobs getting pulled that week, and it's almost like you're in your home, and you've got the cheese on toast under the grill, and you can just kind of, I can smell something. It's smoke, I think. Is that the smoke detector going off? No. The kitchen's on fire now, and that's the stage that we got to, really. And it was too late, and the whole house has gone up ablaze. Yeah,
we did. But now the backtracking and it wasn't me. My department knew, but I didn't know. I mean, some of the comments I've heard, and they are directly attributable to people, so they're not like Manx rumours. Because we want to go to Manx rumours, like we really got to town, but that's not really what this, what facts should be about. But some of the directly attributable quotes to these guys, it's like oh no, I'm distancing myself from it all now. Wasn't me. Absolutely shocking. To call it 72 hours, and that's giving them benefit saying 72 hours, but it was a shocking 72 hours.
Well, we're here, and we've got quite a time ahead where we're imprisoned, aren't we? And there's no question about it. I know people who are involved in health and welfare and things like that, and it's almost like the screws have turned in that people are imprisoned now in their homes because they've got to play the game, because that if you go out and meet your friends and break the rules, well, you should be going to prison. I'm not quite sure at the moment. Depends who's deciding.
Just stop you. I don't necessarily agree there. I've got to say, if you break the rules, depending to what extent, but I think a suspended sentence to anyone would be much more applicable. If you broke the rules, the COVID rules, and you got an 8-week suspended sentence, for a year, 2 years, you're not going to break it again, and we're not going to impinge on the prison and so on. So I think putting people into prison, because they're not coping well with the situation, because some of them are blatantly about people not coping. Yeah. Some of them are just idiots breaking the rules. But the crime, your intent, but the crime's the same, and one's intent and one isn't. It's still the same crime, because ignorance is not a defence, is it? But I think putting people into prison for 5-6 weeks for breaking the rule is just ridiculous. I mean, they should definitely have got a suspended sentence, because then they're not leaving the house. They're just not going to leave the house, are they?
Well, the thing is, where's my phone? Where's my phone? Right, okay, here's my phone. This has got it's got some sort of GPS device in.
Correct, yeah.
In fact, you can buy a GPS bracelet, can't you? Now, in this day and age, we've got the technology to monitor people where they are, haven't we?
I mean, okay, good point. Yeah, just tag them. Instead of giving them 6 weeks in prison, tag them, yeah? Yeah. It costs a couple £100 to tag them for it to be monitored, yeah? I think it's £600-700 a week to put someone in prison, as well as putting extra pressure on the prison and all the people that are in there. Because, don't get me wrong, they're in prison for a reason. But all of a sudden it becomes a harder place to be because of all the incoming and so on. I just think, I'll use the word archaic, and I won't go down well for saying that, but we had other options than just putting someone straight into prison for being what's essentially a fucking idiot. But some of these fucking idiots didn't know any better. Some of them did. Some of them were just absolutely, to the nth degree, fucking idiots. But same crime should have the same punishment.
I'm aware of a few regular kind of people who made a mistake and they were incarcerated. And I've got to try and understand what is the long-term society benefit to that when there were other options available. And then you had those the welders, the Tesco 5, who were clueless. It was ignorance, really. You had, I think, a woman who's escaping domestic violence from, a home.
Yeah. But they've changed that now. They've changed that. If you're now getting severe domestic abuse, you're allowed to, But I mean, they're the perfect examples. The Tesco 5 went to Tesco allegedly to buy some sandwiches for work tomorrow, but they've got to come up with some form of defence. But they all had masks on, and they all made effort, and they were just ignorant. They would be a perfect example to say, right, we're putting you on the boat tomorrow. you've got a suspended sentence and you're barred from the island. To put them into prison, I know there's the classic make an example, but I don't know. Sometimes it's just way too much. But to bring this back to probably what your initial point on this subject about mental health, I personally have suffered with mental health on and off for years. It's a reasonably well-known subject, topic with people who I know. And this last lockdown, I live on my own now. My last lockdown, I spent some time with someone. I was living with someone. She had a family, nice house. It was like you say, the summer love. It was DJing. It was like more prosecco than you could shake a stick at. So it was almost quite easy. It was almost like quite novel. Hey, we'll get through this, but in the meantime, everyone's getting paid and blah blah blah. But this one has been so hard for me, and I'm coming through my mental issues, but this has really set me back a little bit. But I'm a strong guy, but I know how much it's affected me. I mean, 2 or 3 days ago, I literally was just sat here, just wanted to cry. I literally was on the edge of tears. It was that bad. And I one of the reasons I chose to come and have a chat with you tonight, and I knew there'd be some frivolity and some, political discussion and stuff. But, fundamentally, if I can get one thing across to anybody who watches it live or comments or watches it afterwards, is that the underlying mental issues on this island are totally being ignored. Absolutely, totally being ignored. We're absolutely in denial, because I know I'm strong, but I know how weak I felt the other day. And if I'm that bad, and I'm not in too bad a position financially, etc., some people must be absolutely on the edge.
It goes without saying. I think everyone that you speak to, everyone, right across the board, is fed up, aren't they? They're fed up. And you're imprisoned. Your day-to-day activities are being controlled. You haven't got really the faith in those people that are telling you what to do and how we've got it. But you're right. You've got a good lifestyle. You've got your own place. And there's going to be people out there who are.
Yeah, I actually live at a friend's at the moment, but he's elsewhere. So.
But what I'm saying is that there's going to be some people out there who. What's going to be happening tomorrow for them? The day after. How are they getting by? Because it's just incredible, really, how restricted people are. And I don't think that the access and service provided by the medical people is available.
Well, I think we encroached upon it before, where they said there's £1 million underspend on mental health services. Well, again, without sticking my arse into Woolworth's window, 6 months ago, I really was in need to just talk to somebody, someone, a professional. One thing I will say is the reason that I get through all the things I get through its fluctuations is I have an amazing group of friends and family, absolutely amazing. Even today, I've had 2 books sent to me, some cards, and I'm always being contacted. So do you know what? That's my coping mechanism, yeah? But 6 months ago, when I probably wasn't being as honest as I should have been to people, I went to see my doctor and said, I'm really struggling to cope here. So they put me in touch with Manx Mental Health Services, and I got a phone call literally 2 weeks later to find out if I qualified, which, I find quite offensive anyway, if I qualified. And I was told there's a 9-month waiting list to speak to someone. Now, please explain to me how somebody who's struggling is going to go home and go, all right, that's cool. I'll just muddle on for 9 months. I'll man up, or I'll just, show some strength for 9 months. I mean, that's just utter bollocks. Like,
it's impossible. That scenario is impossible. And without dwelling too much on the tragic events, I wouldn't say the last years, for as long as I can remember, that. Yep. I think we can look back to Bridgend. Remember that place featured in the news because of this extraordinary level of suicides, wasn't it? Let's be blunt about it.
Yeah.
And then it's cropped up in the last few years about the rate on the Isle of Man.
Mm-hmm. I'll be honest. Oh, go on, sorry.
No. Well, I mean, the thing is, well, you got to ask, well, why? Is it because there's a lack of medical assistance? Do people not know where to look for it, or is there something unique about our society, culture, and what we do?
I actually did some research into it because it's common knowledge. Three of my best friends from the Isle of Man, God bless them, have lost their lives to suicide. And I actually did some research on it. And from some of the things I gleaned, and again, it's all subjective. What I read doesn't mean it's actually factual, but some of the things I read that I found quite abhorrent was the Isle of Man at one point had the highest rate of suicide in Western Europe. I think you had to get to like Estonia before it sort of got worse. But one of the commonalities is it's a seaside resort. I mean, real incredible high suicide rate, sort of South End and stuff. So I sort of sometimes, that's one of the commonalities. But the thing is, if you look at Rill's, what's the word, health propensity, it's rubbish because England is classically, I know Wales, but classically underfunded. This is the Isle of Man. We are basically pretty much, I would say multi-billion pound, but it could be £1 trillion business. Yeah, we shouldn't be underfunded health-wise, and the fact we are is an absolute disgrace. So I did some research, and the more I delved, the more it just really just pissed me off. But yeah, so that, I mean, again, please I don't want anyone to come on and quote and so on and so forth. It's a little bit subjective, but I'm not a stupid guy, and at the time I just thought it doesn't say a lot about the powers that be. To be fair,
I think for clarity, it was a question that appeared in Timald, and it was the MHK June Watterson, who is a qualified accountant, and he highlighted this underspend. And it was cited as 1 million. I think there is some explanation around that. If anyone's got that information to hand, please comment. We have got quite a good few viewers tonight, and we've got some thumbs up, so thank you very much for tuning in. Please subscribe and share and comment and get involved. That would be a big help. But this is a really serious issue on the Isle of Man, one of our big serious issues. And you know what, it's just struck me, is anyone really talking about this at the top level, or is it another one of the skeletons that are just put in the cupboard and locked away?
I would put it down to file under Mount Murray, MEA loans, Sefton Group. Just file it under all these things that there's a furore for an amount of time, but they know that if they can just, no time in Timble for this question, no time. At some point, people are cynical. They're like, I tried, and even but the hoi polloi will quite simply, they'll go in it for a certain while, but then they'll have to get back on with their lives. And, I'm not conspiratorial, but quite simply, politics is a very simple solution. It's divide and conquer. And if you look at what we're going through now at the moment with, your vax, anti-vax, it's a real virus. No, it isn't. Funding, no funding. Bill Gates is a philanthropist. No, he's not. He's injecting me with, the GPS. I mean, divide and conquer stops the people at the top actually having to do anything, because if they let the hoi polloi go nuts, they can just sip their Pinot Grigio, which is no offense to yourself, and or their champagne. Who knows what they're drinking, yeah? And they can just say, do you know what? As long as we divide and conquer, leave the hoi polloi arguing amongst themselves, they won't focus on what matters, which is the administration, which is the people up the chain, So I know it was a big leap of faith from what we discussed in last, but divide and conquer's been around since the art of war, Sun Tzu. It's quite factual, I would say.
Well, you're looking at, say, the biggest story in the last few weeks. It's Harry and Meghan, isn't it? What an amazing distraction that has been.
Oh, yeah. You've nailed it. It's an amazing distraction. So, but you know what? There's something that's actually, while we talk about divide and conquer and distraction and stuff. So you've got obviously COVID, of course. We've got Harry and Meghan. But do you know what? No one's even mentioning Brexit. Brexit, from what I've heard, is absolutely decimating businesses that could have maybe got through the whole COVID struggle. But no, Brexit hasn't even, if we get over COVID, which we might just do, then he's going to go, guess what? I got to mention Brexit now, and it's like, and then we're like, oh, fucking hell, here we go again, yeah. Divide and conquer.
Oh, we've got Andrew Neal saying, "Evening, chaps." So, evening, Andrew. Feel free to dial in, comment. And we've got Michael just picked up on, right, I think we're going back to the sentencing for COVID. We've got to differentiate between dumb people and educate them, and evil people, punish them harshly. And no one can disagree with that stance for sure. But it's funny, I had Bonzo Slater on. Do you know him at all? Have you ever come across him?
I read a lot of his stuff because he just, he's a disruptor. I think one of the reasons I did think about the keys, and to be honest with you, I never rule out, because never. I would always stand as a disruptor. Wouldn't get my second term because that's just how it works. I wouldn't be asked about trying to get a pension, but he's definitely a disruptor. And hats off to him. There's a lot to be said for a disruptor because it creates dialogue.
I haven't really had much chance to engage with him until recently, and he's a very clever fellow. He's obviously got the photographic memory first of all, so he can pull anything out the bag that's been said or muted in the news or in Tynwald and the House of Keys. So he's good on that front, but he's actually got a parliamentary background in the UK. So he's very savvy. He's very savvy. And we had a conversation, and he opened my eyes to this thing about running down the clock in the House of Keys in Tynwald. So how you have your questions.
Absolutely.
And it's a kind of a mishmash, an eclectic mix. There's some really good ones in there and some very bland ones in. And someone who's quite suspicious might say to themselves, oh, these bland ones are attracting some superbly big responses where they've really over-egged it. And then it comes down to the clock, and then they vote for extending the time. And at the moment, of course, the ministers who are on the payroll choose to cut that and move on to the next business. And these questions are getting booted into the long grass, or they're getting picked up by written answers, which are quite good, actually, the written answers. And you can see the way it's going to go, where there's a bit more accountability. But I would advise anyone out there at the moment, tune into your Tynwald website, look at Hansard, look at the questions, and use the listen again facility. So it is worth it because, where do you look for your news, locally? Where do you go? Do you buy a newspaper?
No, do I buy a newspaper? No. I get delivered the Courier, which nowadays I think it's about, is it an 8 double spread sort of thing? The written word to me is, the printed word is dead. It's relevant because for no matter what, it's at least 24 hours behind. So, no, I can't lie to you. I've been a little bit avoiding the news of late because it's just nothing good, and it just gets my back up. Before I find myself, I'm on various Facebook sites. I'm spouting, and then I'm just getting myself into situations. Then, okay. I think reading's a lot better than me speaking. To be fair, which is obviously quite contradictory that I'm on here now. But hey,
well, you look at the places to go. So you've got your News and Politics Facebook page, which is interesting, and you've got people who pull together things that might be of interest. So you've got that, and it's rapid, isn't it? It's responding to things as they're happening, and there's no question about it. The likes of, say, the different news outlets. You've got Manx Radio, 3FM, Energy. I enjoyed you and Turner's stuff. That always makes me laugh. And Jeff has changed, hasn't he? Sam Turton he's good. He's good.
Well, he's brought an alternative viewpoint. I've got a lot of time for Paul Moulton because he's Marmite, whatever. But at the end of the day, at least he's making an effort, and even Tim Glover appears to be stepping up a little bit. But ironically, just to bring you back a few steps, I used to have a show on Manx Radio, a dance show, and it was Drew and Turner that actually. I used to have a dance music show. This is like 1991.
Oh, right,
so
okay.
When it comes
hold the politics. Right, you've got me now. Let's just go. 10 minutes on Dance Show 1990s, because that is when it was all happening.
Yeah, do you know what? You've probably done well there, because I think I was starting to get into Rantsville, Tennessee then, you know what I mean? That's not right. No, if I revert back, I've been DJing now for 31 years. And it all started at Little Caesars, which was obviously the Crescent, which was, turned into Paramount City. And Peter Dunn, who's an amazing friend of mine, he was DJing with Mark Adams at the time. I was like 20, but I was buying records. I used to go to Manchester to buy my clothes because I was into the whole rave scene and stuff. I was like 19, 20. I used to buy records.
So just hold on. So did you go to Affleck's Palace?
Of course I did, yeah. Of course I did, absolutely, yeah. 22-inch flares, jokes, of course I did, mate, absolutely. And across from Affleck's was Eastern Bloc, and around the corner was Manchester Underground. So, I come from like a bit of a early in the history. So I used to bring records back. I used to bring 6 or 8, and then Peter Dunn used to call it Rave Hour. He used to play like quite commercial stuff and dancey stuff. First of all, before I go any further, Peter Dunn is the absolute grandfather of Manx House. Yeah, what people will know is that my DJ nickname is the Godfather of Manx House, but Peter Dunn gave me that. So I just like to get that clear, but it seems like I'm slagging him off. I love Peter Dunn, absolute legend, best DJ on the Isle of Man, because he can do anything from Teddy Boy rock to Northern soul to mod music to punk to dance music. So I digress. So I bring these records in. So after 3 or 4 weeks, and he's got 24, 30 my records, he said, "Why don't you put the records on? Because you're the one with the, you're paying for them. You've got the style, the taste." So I started DJing. On the 1210s, couldn't mix for shit. There's an argument. A lot of DJs now would say I still can't mix for shit, but that's what DJs do. There's nothing more bitchy than a hairdresser than a DJ, right? So I played for a few weeks, and then Jimmy Gillespie, the then owner of Jimmy B's, decided he wasn't paying 3 of us, so he didn't sack, but he gave the job to me, and Peter Dunn and Mark Adams left. So I started DJing, and then it was really on in the Manx dance scene, and I mean it was absolutely fucking crazy. It was just wild. I mean, how old are you, Jeff?
I'm 53, so I'm aware of a few things.
Yeah. And where are you from originally? You're from Manchester originally, I think, yeah?
Well, you're not going to believe this. There were 3 owners of Eastern Bloc Records. There were 3, and one of them was involved in it.
One of them, yeah?
One of them was to do with 808 State, wasn't he? That was...
Darren?
Yeah, I can't remember. But my brother Mick was one of the guys who founded Eastern Bloc Records. So there you go.
Is he called Mike E. Block?
No. But it's Mick Power. But I would go.
I'll tell you what, man.
This is so uncool. But I would go over there, and I mean, don't forget, I was in the cops then. Okay, so I would go over there, and I would stay at my brother's place in Bolton. And it was quite unique because they had a half-pipe skateboard ramp in the lounge, in the living room. That's what it was. And there was all kinds of crazy stuff going on. And the good thing about it was that with them having the record shop, they got access to go to all the tickets to all the gigs.
Yeah.
So I was over there, and we were on an absolute bender. And he goes, "Hey, we must go to these. I've heard they're good." And it was a band that were on a tour, and it was just before they made it, and they were called Nirvana. So, but I mean, I am like, music-wise, I'm the most uncoolest guy around. I've got no style, but it's a nice little story. So thank you to my brother Mick for that night, which was it was a heavy one.
Yeah, it's a great symmetry. I would have to ask, when you say on a bender and you were a cop at the time, I'd like to think you were just on the brandy and stuff, but I digress, yeah?
Should we go back to the Isle of Man? back to the Manx jurisdiction?
Yeah. Actually, don't use the word jurisdiction. That's your copper coming back in, isn't it?
I just protected myself.
Yeah, but protected the innocent, yeah? So, Little Caesars went right off. It was, I mean... it just got to the point there was like 800 people in a club that should have held 300 people. And it was like 2 years of just absolute fucking madness. And I was just lucky. I was just like first up, best dressed. It's one of those. If I hadn't brought those records around to Peter Dunn, he played them. I played a few records. Next minute, I've got a gig. Next minute, I'm bringing in DJs from the UK. I'm bringing in PAs. And, Caesar was amazing. It had its shelf life like any club in the Isle of Man. But within sort of a year or two, I was down the academy working with Henry and Kevin Kelly down there. And they let me redesign the club. They actually said, listen, we know you can fucking smash this. They knew that I wasn't getting paid per night, because obviously DJs now get paid per night. Back then, I was like promoter. I was on like, oh, the fucking tax ain't listening.
Lovely.
I was on a percentage. I leave a percentage off the door. And we were getting 800 people at 6, 7 quid a head. Let's just say at the end of the night, my mates just take the piss that much. I'd go and pick my wages up, and they'd go, well, your mates have had 13, 14 bottles of Moet. I'd be like, well, standard. And I'd still pick up a pound or two, So it was, there were heady times. I mean, to be like 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, and to me to be doing that. But it also had the bonus flip. I mean, I used to bring in DJs from across, resident DJs, like, Welly from Bowlers. You must know DJ Welly, obviously. Guys in Jersey, Wigan, Manchester, Liverpool. You'd bring in a resident DJ, but they would book you in return to play at their club. So I got to play in the UK as well. So, they're really, really heady times. Like,
cool, blimey. So really, when you think about that, okay, and then you compare that and the fun that anyone in their, teens, late teens, early 20s, the fun that was had then is non-existent now.
Yeah. Do you know what? I think, right, there's a concept. If we start in 55 being Little Richard and rock and roll and Elvis being invented, then you jump 11 years to 66, which is the Beatles, and pop music almost being invented, Jump 11 years to 77, which is punk. Then you jump 11 years to 88, which is like First Summer Love and dance music. There's a slight argument for 99 where trance sort of kicked in. Yeah. When I was out by then, I wasn't into trance at all, but 99. But then if you go to 2010, nothing really came around. Now I'm not saying that the kids that are fun nowadays, because I used to DJ quite a bit in 1886. Great place to go, and at the weekend, Hendo and Dan, who play there, downstairs with the kids in there, it's absolutely bouncy. So I don't doubt that the kids are having fun, but we went through a scene, where it was absolutely, it was organic, it was literally, it was new. So 88, 89 was when I started. Yeah, I mean, it was just, you couldn't make the shit up. It was like, you couldn't explain it, whereas now, I'm sure they go out have a good time because they blatantly do. I've seen them, but there's not the same, paraphrase towards it being a scene. Not in my opinion, anyway.
You're right. There isn't that kind of guerrilla kind of, you know what I mean? Inside the ropes, outside the ropes. That's gone.
They're just gone. They're not pissing their parents off, which I think the whole concept of a scene is to piss your parents off. Yeah. And I reckon now the parents are like, thank fuck they're not in their house. I just hope they don't come in and be too noisy, you know what I mean? Because they all are 18, 19, 20. But all those other scenes, 55, 66, 77, 88, and potentially, 99, it was about pissing your parents off. It was about pissing off, the generation above you. But I'm not sure that's really happened, in this.
Interesting. And to think how much the pandemic will have an influence, because I've got a 16-year-old boy. He's on the upper floor and he can't see his mates, and you just wonder where things are going to evolve. I'll just pick up on a couple of comments that have just come in. So we've got Andy Saunders, who's saying that social media has killed bursts of youth culture that we had in the past. What are we talking now? Are we talking about that everyone's got a camera phone on them and you can't do anything? Or
I think I'm really happy that, by the way, Andy Saunders is a great pal of mine. Quids Inn is an absolutely fantastic place. Their promotion of live music is unparalleled. Him and Lou, beautiful people. The staff, everyone, they're great. but he makes a really salient point, and it's something I hope we touch on tonight, because let's revert back slightly from social media just to the internet. Yeah, the internet. If we look at things that have changed humanity, yeah, let's start with like fire and the wheel. Then let's go to printing press. Let's go to the steam engine. Add planes, maybe television, phone. We hit the internet, yeah? The internet should have been the thing that made life so much better for everyone. I mean, social media is just a spin-off of the internet, but you probably could refer to it as the internet now. But the internet should have given everyone absolutely unrivaled access to the truth. But ironically, when we go back to divide and conquer and the whole concept of the truth, if you dilute the truth, no one's got a fucking clue where they're at. The internet / social media should have made life so much better for everyone, and it hasn't. It's absolutely denigrated and made things worse. So Andy Saunders is totally on point there.
It's scary, and I'll just come into another point, and I really am on thin ice when I talk about this. A couple of weeks ago, I had a guy that I interviewed on the little channel, just as we're kind of getting going, because I told you it's an organic thing that we're doing here.
Yep.
And it was a chap, and I won't give his name, but he's well known on the island, and he's basically a vaccine denier, a COVID denier. Okay. So the video actually got pulled off YouTube.
Was it the Tesco video?
The video I did with him, the interview.
Oh fuck!
Yeah, so I'm thinking that's, and it really made me reflect. It made me reflect on the decision that I made to bring him on camera, the lack of research that I did on the subject and him. But since then, I've actually been looking into what material is out there. Okay, and there's a huge sway about the vaccine and the disease, as we know, as we've all seen it, haven't we? Yeah. We've all seen it, all the doubting that goes on. The fact that what worries me is that we're going to have a vaccine this year, aren't we?
I hope so. I've not been invited yet, but I'm younger than you, so.
But we're going to have a vaccine next year.
I believe so. Yeah, I believe we all should. But people need their own choice.
And the year after, and the year after that. So
yeah, like the vaccine. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, our lifestyles are changing, and we've got to have 100% trust and faith in the medical brains that are behind it. That's I'll just park that one. I think anyone who's having something put in their arm, it's going to cause an element of worry, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is. I mean, it's really hard to. I don't want to impinge my opinion on people too much, but I think that let's use my mother as an example. She's 74. She's a bit doubtful. Oh, there could be some side effects. Could be this, blah blah. I says, Mum, okay, I really want you to try the vaccine because there was a really small possibility of a negative reaction. Yeah. But Mum, you catching COVID is pretty much going to be a life sentence for you. So I think if we look at a graph, there's a certain point where it's make your own mind up, yeah. But I think over 60s, maybe over 50s, people are vulnerable. People have pre-existing competitions. That's ridiculous. Existing conditions. I think they should be an absolute given, but it's still their choice. It's still their choice. I mean, the best thing about it is that it will be people's choice. What I will say is I generally think that the travel companies, which is their absolute right because they're private, they can decide if you're getting on a plane, a train, an automobile, a cruise. They will say, well, if you're vaccinated, I mean, already Ian Brown from the Stone Roses, he said, he's pulled out of a big festival he was headlining. I'm not playing at a festival where you have to be vaccinated. That's his choice. But the festival is saying, well, I want you to be vaccinated. These people have, and I love Ian Brown, by the way. I love the Stone Roses. I'm not sure I agree with Ian, but it's going to come to the point where you make your own choice. Because if you don't have it, when these private companies that you want to fly with, drive with, cruise with, go to their festivals, say, well, no, you can't. Well, you had the option. it goes back to private enterprise, yeah. It's a bit like me and you saying, right, if you haven't had a vaccine, don't turn. You're not allowed to watch the fucking watch the podcast.
Yeah.
It's a good situation. That's my perception of it all.
I mean, it just goes back to what's available on the internet and what people are exposed to. Really, I think you've just got to go with it and have trust in the. In the people behind it, because these people want life to be better, don't they? So
I disagree. I'm not being contentious, but no, you've got to have trust in your own decision. That's what you're trusting. Because if you don't have it and you can't travel and you catch it and you're fucked, yeah, that was your decision. So I think you've got to trust in your own decision. And to be fair, that pretty much sums up life in general, doesn't it? You've got to stand by your own decisions. That sort of sums it up.
Precisely, and I think that sums up this evening, Neal. It's been lovely to have a chat. We're just hitting 50 minutes, so thank you to the viewers for tuning in for a Skeetnet first on St. Paddy's Day, and it's been absolutely lovely. It's been great. I really enjoyed that, Neal, and hopefully we can come back, because really we only got to the early 90s on the music marathon that is your career. I'd love to hear more about that. Love to hear more.
I've probably got a few more things to say, but like you say, scratch the surface. But it's always good to leave people wanting more, or some people less, obviously.
Okay, well, we'll bid you farewell. It's been fantastic.
Thanks, everyone.
We'll catch up again. Okay.